I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how I found out my wife, Lisa, was cheating on me. We'd been married for 8 years, together for about 12, and honestly, I thought we had a good thing going. She was the kind of woman who seemed confident, a little bitchy sometimes, sure, but I liked that about her. She could be sharp-tongued and ruthless when she wanted, but she was also charming when it suited her. I always thought she was loyal, until I started noticing little things that didn't add up. At first, it was small stuff. She started coming home late more often, claiming she had to work late, even though her job as a marketing exec didn't usually require that kind of overtime. No emails at midnight, no calls outside working hours, but suddenly she was always staying late at the office. I didn't push her at first because I figured maybe she was just busy or stressed. But then I started noticing her phone habits. She'd hide her screen when I entered the room, set her phone face down, and get all defensive if I asked to see it. Little things, but enough to make me suspicious. The real sinking feeling hit me last month during what I thought was a normal Thursday. It was our anniversary trip, supposed to be a romantic getaway, just the two of us. We booked a nice hotel, planned to relax, maybe reconnect. But it turned into something completely different. The night before, she had been acting strange, distracted, anxious, texting someone nonstop. I asked who it was, and she dismissed me with a sharp laugh, saying, "Just work stuff. Don't be nosy." That should have tipped me off, but I was still trying to enjoy the trip. The next day, I decided to do my own digging. I was in the hotel room, waiting for her to get ready for dinner, and I noticed her phone lying unattended on the table. I didn't mean to snoop, but I was curious, something about the way she was acting, the tension, the lies. I glanced at her screen and saw a text thread that made my stomach drop. It was from her boss, Mark. The messages weren't innocent. They were flirty, suggestive. They talked about meeting up, finishing what they started, and she called him baby in one of the texts. She had sent him a picture of her in her lingerie, and the last message was, "Can't wait to see you tonight." I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. My heart was pounding, my mind racing. I felt sick, betrayed, like I'd been punched in the gut. I knew then that she had been screwing her boss during our anniversary trip. While I was trying to reconnect with her, she was out fucking some guy she claimed was just her work friend. That moment was like a slap across the face, and everything I thought I knew about her, everything I ever believed in, crumbled in that instant. I didn't yell or lose it right then. I just quietly closed her phone, put it back where I found it, and waited for her to come out of the bathroom. When she finally stepped out, I was already cold inside. She looked at me, all bright-eyed and innocent, and I couldn't hold back anymore. I told her I knew. She froze, then smirked with that bitchy little smile and said, "What are you talking about? You're imagining things." I showed her the messages, and her reaction was priceless. She flipped out, started calling me paranoid, accused me of invading her privacy. She said she was just talking to her boss, that it was harmless flirtation, nothing serious, that she was tired of my accusations, that I was crazy for jumping to conclusions. But I knew better. I saw it all, the lies, the sneaking around, the betrayal. That's when I realized that everything I thought was real wasn't anymore. She had been lying to my face for months, maybe longer. She'd been cheating during our supposed special moments, during our anniversary trip no less. I was devastated. I'd trusted her, loved her, and she'd been sleeping with her boss. It's like she took a knife and carved out my heart while I was still trying to figure out what was happening. I felt numb, furious, humiliated. How could she be so callous, so cold? After that, everything changed. I couldn't look at her the same way. I started thinking about all the times she lied, all the nights she was working late, and the secret texts I never knew about. I felt like I'd been blind, a fool. And now I was stuck trying to figure out what I was supposed to do next. Do I confront her again? Do I pack my bags and walk away? Or do I try to fix this mess? Honestly, right now I'm just trying to breathe, trying to process what I've found out. But trust me, this isn't the end of the story. There's more to come, and I'm afraid it's only going to get messier. After I showed her the messages, Lisa's face twisted into this ugly mix of anger and amusement. She was still smirking, like she thought she was untouchable. She looked at me like I was the crazy one, the one overreacting. "You're so paranoid," she said, voice dripping with disdain. It's just a little flirt, you're overthinking everything. Mark and I are just friends, nothing more." She shrugged as if her cheating was nothing serious, just a harmless game to spice up her dull office life. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could she just brush it off like that, like it was no big deal? I was shaking, my mind racing. I could feel my blood boiling. I never thought I'd be the guy who caught his wife cheating. Especially not during our anniversary trip. It felt like my entire world was crashing down around me. I told her I knew about the sex, about the texts, about everything. She rolled her eyes, said I was jealous and insecure, and that I needed to stop accusing her of things she hadn't done. She even had the nerve to say I was imagining things, that maybe I was just projecting my insecurities onto her. I could see her trying to turn it around, make me doubt myself, make me think I was losing my mind. But I wasn't stupid. I knew what I saw. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, her lies, the way her voice sounded when she denied it all, the way she tried to make me doubt my own eyes. I wanted to believe she was innocent, that maybe I was just paranoid, but deep down I knew the truth. She'd been sneaking around behind my back for months. The worst part was feeling so helpless, like I was just another fool caught in her web. I kept asking myself, how long has this been going on? How many other lies had I believed? It's like I'd been living in a nightmare and I didn't know how to wake up. The next morning, I decided I had to confront her again, but I didn't want to do it without a plan. I needed to know everything, get all the facts straight before I said another word. So I went through her phone again, digging a little deeper. I found out that she had been seeing Mark even before our supposed anniversary trip. It wasn't just a one-time thing, they'd been sneaking around for at least a couple of months. The worst part, she met him after work at hotels, at his house, even during lunch breaks. I uncovered messages where she called him the one, and him calling her his girl. They had a whole secret life I never knew about. I felt sick again just reading those texts. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so naive. All those times she claimed she was working late, she was actually with him. It was like she'd built this whole double life, and I was the last to find out. My mind kept spinning. How long had she been lying? Had she been cheating on me for years? Or was it just the last few months? I couldn't handle the thought that I'd wasted so much time, so many years, on someone who was just using me for her convenience. I thought about all the moments I'd trusted her, shared my fears, hopes, and dreams with her, and how she had just thrown all that away. By then, I was a mess. I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman I loved turned into a stranger. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it coming, how I missed all the signs. But honestly, I was too busy trying to keep our marriage afloat. I thought we were okay. I thought she loved me. Now I realize I was stupid. She had been lying, cheating, sneaking around behind my back, and I had no clue. It felt like my entire life was a lie, and I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. I wanted to scream, cry, do something to make it right, but I just sat there, frozen, feeling the weight of betrayal crush me. I knew I'd have to face her again soon. I didn't know what I'd say or how I'd even start that conversation. Right now, I just feel numb, like I'm walking around in someone else's life. All I know is I'm not going to stay silent anymore. The betrayal is too deep, and I have to decide what's next. Do I stay and try to fix this? Do I walk away? I don't have the answers yet, but I do know one thing: I'll never look at her the same way again. After spending all night wrestling with my thoughts, I finally decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. The truth was staring me in the face, and I had to face her again. I woke up early, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. I knew I had to confront Lisa, but I also knew I needed to be careful. I didn't want to lose my temper and say something I'd regret, but I also couldn't just sit there and pretend I didn't know what she'd been doing. When she finally woke up, I kept my face neutral. I wanted to see if she'd crack first, if she'd show any sign of guilt or remorse. But she was her usual bitchy self, acting like nothing was wrong. She rolled over, looked at me with that smirk that I'd come to hate, and said, "Good morning, babe, sleep well." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at her and said, "We need to talk about last night, about everything." She sat up, looked annoyed, and said, "What's there to talk about? I told you I was working late. You're just being paranoid." I took a deep breath and said, "No, Lisa, I saw the messages. I know about Mark. I know you've been sleeping with him for months." Her eyes widened for a second, then the smirk returned. "You're crazy," she muttered, rolling her eyes. "You're just jealous because I wouldn't give you the time of day. You think I want to be with a guy who's always working. Grow up." I shook my head. "That's not true. I saw the texts, Lisa, the photos. You were planning to meet him last night, weren't you?" She scoffed and leaned back on her pillow. "You don't know you're talking about. You're just insecure. I don't know what kind of crazy fantasy you're living in, but I'm not cheating on you. If anything, you're the one who's been distant lately. Maybe you should look in the mirror and ask yourself why I'd want to cheat on you." Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak boiling inside me. How could she be so cold, so dismissive of everything I just uncovered? I pressed her further. "Did you sleep with him last night? During our trip? During our anniversary?" She rolled her eyes again and said, "Honestly, I don't have to justify anything to you. I told you I was working late. If I wanted to cheat, I'd do it in a way that's smarter than sneaking around with some guy I barely even like." That lie, that tone of contempt, it was more than I could handle. All I wanted was the truth. But she was just spinning her stories, trying to gaslight me into doubting what I saw. I felt my jaw tighten. I was furious, but I kept my voice steady. "Lisa, I'm done playing your games. I found out everything. The texts, the photos, the secret meetings. I know you've been cheating on me for months, maybe longer." Her face twisted and she suddenly looked angry herself. "Fine," she snapped. "If you're so obsessed with snooping, maybe you're the one who's the problem. Maybe I should leave since you clearly don't trust me." She threw the covers back and started pulling on her clothes. I watched her, feeling like I was losing my mind. How could she just walk out like that after destroying our marriage? I wanted to scream, to beg her to stay, but I knew that wouldn't do any good. Whatever she was planning, I was done being played. I told her, "If you're leaving, don't bother coming back. I don't want to see your face again." When she heard that, her eyes flashed with mockery. "Good," she said. "You're better off without me." And then she stormed out of the room, leaving me alone with my shattered thoughts and that gnawing feeling of betrayal I couldn't shake. That moment, I realized I had a choice to make. I could just accept it, pretend it never happened and try to move on, or I could really do something about it. I knew I couldn't stay with her after all this. The trust was gone. The love, too, maybe forever. But part of me still wondered, what did I do wrong? Was I blind? Did I miss the signs? Or was she just a bitch who wanted to have her cake and eat it too? Whatever the case, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without a fight. I had to figure out my next move, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. After she left that morning, I sat in the silent apartment, trying to process what just happened. My head was spinning, my chest felt heavy, and I couldn't get the images of her with Mark out of my mind. Every time I thought about confronting her, I'd get this sick feeling in my stomach, like maybe I'd been stupid for trusting her all these years. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I could have been so blind to her lies. It was a gut punch, and honestly, I didn't even know if I wanted to fight for this marriage anymore. Part of me just wanted to crawl into bed and disappear. But I knew I couldn't do that forever. I had to get some clarity. I decided to take a step back, to gather everything I knew and figure out exactly what I was dealing with. So I spent the rest of that day going through her phone again, looking for more evidence, anything that would confirm what I already suspected. Sure enough, I found more. There were texts from Mark about meeting up after hours, photos of her in lingerie that she'd sent him, messages where she called him the one, and even some flirty videos. The depth of her betrayal was staggering. It was like she'd built this secret life, and I was only just waking up to it. I also started digging into her social media accounts, trying to see if she'd been posting or liking anything that could give me more clues. That's when I realized she'd been deleting a lot of her activity, probably trying to hide her tracks. I found some messages between her and friends, talking about her secret affair and how she was feeding her ego. It was like she was proud of sneaking around, like she enjoyed the thrill. That realization made my stomach turn even more. She'd been lying to me, manipulating me, all while acting like she was the innocent victim. By late evening, I was exhausted emotionally, but I knew I needed to prepare for what was coming next. I wasn't about to just let her walk away after all this. I needed a plan. I decided to record some of the evidence on my phone, screenshots, recordings of her messages, so I'd have proof if she tried to deny everything later. I also started thinking about how I wanted to confront her again, but this time I had to be smarter. No more arguing in the heat of the moment. I had to stay calm, keep my cool, and make her see I knew everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the way she looked at me with that bitchy smirk, her lies, her betrayal. I kept replaying everything I'd uncovered, wondering how I'd let it get this far. How did I miss her cheating for so long? Was I stupid? Or was she just a master manipulator? I felt like a fool, like I'd been played for a sucker. But at the same time, I was determined. I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not without a fight. In the end, I realized I had to make a choice: stay and try to fix what was broken, or walk away and start fresh. Honestly, part of me still loved her, but the trust was shattered beyond repair. I knew I couldn't keep living in this lie. I had to decide if I was going to fight for the marriage, knowing full well what she was capable of, or if I was going to cut my losses and get out before it dragged me further into this mess. That night I made a decision. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I'd gather all my strength and figure out what came next. The betrayal had cut deep, but I wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was foggy and my stomach churned. I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I was okay, not after everything I'd uncovered. I had to confront Lisa again, but this time I was going in with a plan. I sat on the edge of the bed, took a deep breath, and pulled out my phone to review all the evidence I had collected. Screenshots, messages, photos, everything I needed to make her see that I knew the truth. When she came home that afternoon, she looked smug, like she thought she'd already won. She sashayed into the apartment, tossing her purse on the table, and gave me a sharp look. "Well, what's the big emergency?" she sneered. I just looked at her, letting the silence stretch. Then I said, "Lisa, I know everything. The texts, the photos, the meetings. I know you've been sleeping with your boss, Mark. All those late nights weren't work, they were sex. And I want to hear it from you, straight up. Did you sleep with him last night?" Her face froze for a second, then she burst out laughing, mocking, dismissive. "Wow, you really are losing it, huh? You think I'd sleep with him? You're so paranoid, it's pathetic." She crossed her arms, smirking like she was untouchable. I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled out the evidence on my phone and showed her the screenshots. Her eyes widened just a little, but she quickly regained her composure. "Look," I said, voice steady but furious, "I don't care what you say. I saw the messages, I know about the pictures. I know you've been lying to me for months. How long has this been going on? How many nights did you spend with him while pretending to be at work?" She scoffed and looked away, acting like she was above it all. "I don't have to explain myself to you," she spat. "You're just jealous and insecure. Maybe if you had been more attentive, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere." Her words stung worse than I thought they would. I felt a sharp wave of anger. How dare she blame me after she'd been so blatant in her lies? I pressed her again. "Did you sleep with him last night? During our trip?" I knew the answer already, but I needed her to admit it. For a moment she hesitated, then finally snapped, "No, I didn't. I was with my friends, remember? You do have any proof I was with him?" That was her typical bullshit: deny, 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 but I had the evidence. I just needed her to admit it outright. "So you're telling me you weren't with him last night?" I repeated, voice low and dangerous. She looked at me with pure contempt. "You really want me to say it? Fine. No, I wasn't with him last night. I told you I was at the bar with my friends having a few drinks. Unlike you, I don't lie about where I am." Her tone was venomous, but I knew better. She'd been caught red-handed, and I wasn't going to let her spin her way out this time. I stared at her, feeling like I'd already lost everything but still had to finish this. "Look," I said, "I don't want to argue anymore. I just want you to be honest with me. If you're done, if you're leaving, just say it. I deserve that much at least." She looked at me with pure hatred, then spat, "Fine, I'm leaving. I don't need this bullshit from a guy who can't even trust his wife." Without another word, she grabbed her bag and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That moment was like the final nail in the coffin. I sat there, trembling with a mix of rage, heartbreak, and relief. I knew this wasn't the end, not really. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I had finally faced the truth and decided not to accept her bullshit anymore. I felt a strange sense of clarity, even as the pain was still raw. I'd been lied to, betrayed, used, but I was still standing. I was going to survive this somehow. And somehow I was going to come out of it stronger. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. After Lisa left that afternoon, I was left alone in the apartment with my thoughts pounding in my head. The silence was deafening. I kept replaying everything: her sneering face, the lies she spat at me, the way she dismissed everything I'd found out. Honestly, I felt a mixture of relief and intense sadness. Relief because I finally knew the truth, and sadness because it meant the woman I loved had been lying, cheating, and betraying me for months, maybe years. It was a crushing blow that shook my entire world. I spent the next few days trying to piece myself back together. I deleted her number, blocked her on social media, and told myself I needed to focus on myself. I started seeing a therapist, trying to understand how I could have been so blindsided, how I'd let someone I trusted so deeply hurt me like this. I also reached out to some friends, people I could trust, and poured my heart out. It was brutally honest, raw, telling them everything, and hearing their support made me realize I wasn't alone, even if I felt like the biggest fool in the world. The hardest part was facing the aftermath. I had to pack up her stuff, which was like tearing out a piece of my own heart. I did it slowly, carefully, trying not to lose my mind. As I boxed up her clothes and things, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of closure. Like I was finally rid of the lies, the deception, the betrayal. I knew I had to move on, even if part of me still loved her, even if I still wondered what I had done wrong. But I realized that sometimes love isn't enough. Trust has to be a foundation, and once that's gone, everything crumbles. In the weeks that followed, I made a conscious decision. No more hiding from what happened. No more pretending I was okay. I acknowledged the pain, the anger, the disappointment, and I let myself feel it. I knew it would take time to heal, but I also knew I couldn't stay stuck in the past. I started focusing on rebuilding myself, getting into therapy, hitting the gym, reconnecting with friends, and rediscovering hobbies I'd set aside. I refused to let her betrayal define me, but I also didn't want to forget what I'd gone through. Instead, I used it as a lesson. Looking back now, I realize I've learned a lot. Trust is fragile, and I'll never take it for granted again. I learned that sometimes the person you love the most can hurt you the deepest, and there's no shame in walking away from that pain. Most importantly, I learned that I am stronger than I thought, strong enough to face the truth, even when it's ugly, and to rebuild my life from the broken pieces. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'll be okay. Better than okay, actually. I'll come out of this wiser, more cautious, but also more aware of what I deserve: honesty, loyalty, and respect. And I'll never let someone lie to me again.